Oscar Hernandez, a missing hiker who disappeared more than 2 weeks ago. His dog was found beside his body last night, emaciated but unfortunately still alive.
This afternoon, Los Angeles Police Department, we received a radio call of possibly a body set on fire.
Every year, hundreds of people are reported missing in national parks, forests, many of them children. And most are eventually found, whether dead or alive. But a small percentage of the cases, some right here in Oregon, are never solved.
Almost 600,000 people go missing every year, and the crazy fact is that 4,400 unidentified bodies are recovered each year, and that's only in the US alone. Some of the reasons of people going missing are violent crimes, mental illness, misadventure, and miscommunication. But missing cases that intrigue me the most are people going missing in national parks or in the forest, because they are never truly solved and answered. Some of them are found deceased without the cause of death, and it makes you want to ask what happened to them or who or what had gotten to them. Now, this first place isn't really a national park, but I feel like it is deserving in this list, and that is Griffith Park, located in Los Angeles, California. If you live here in LA, then you've probably been to this park, maybe around the merry-go-round, the hike path, and the observatory. But lately, this past year, the park has encountered two mysterious cases. The first one is Oscar Hernandez, a hiker went missing 2 weeks before he was found dead with his dog right beside him. The crazy thing about his death is that it is still unknown what happened to him, and police couldn't figure out if it was suicide or not. His dog King stayed by his side for 2 whole weeks and was found emaciated, and it was stated that his dog never ate during those 2 weeks, which is pretty crazy. That's why dogs are the most loyal pets you could ever own. He was last seen on the hiking trail where the merry-go-round is at. His death overall is a mystery, and the police stated that there was no foul play at hand. And even if he was suicidal, then why would he bring his dog with him? To this day, there has been no other reports of his death, and it still remains a mystery. The second one is Vanessa Garcia, who is a Latina mother and was found dead at Griffith Park. In August 9 at around 12:30, LAPD found a body which was already burned and found hanged at a tree. It was near the carousel. LAPD later then made a statement said that there was no foul play at hand. They found no evidence and only found a gas can, and it was only treated as a suicide. Many other people believe that it wasn't a suicide and that she was murdered. Even her own son, who is 21, Anthony Espinosa, has some statements to make. He later found out that on some of her notes that she was sexually trafficked. He said that several people had taken advantage of her in all kinds of ways. He said that she wrote down her experiences in her own diary. She has her own reasons in there why she did what she did. He believes that LAPD has her mother's diary and that they didn't care. He said in an interview, "Her greatest dream in life was to travel the world with us. My mother had 3 children, including me. Possibly she could have killed herself because she was injured. My mom wasn't in the mafia or anything like that. What I know, according to the notes she left behind before she died, is that she was followed for a long time by an Armenian boy identified as AC. My mom never opened up to me about it because I was so young, and as I got older we grew further apart from each other. There were times when she would come home to the family, then she would sleep in the homes of aunts and cousins, but then she disappeared again," he said. "They sent an Armenian boy to hit me in the ribs. They also sent another boy to hit me in the face. They also sent another boy to break my legs. They kept attacking me. They kept taking my things from me. They want me to prostitute myself," said in one of the diaries of Mrs. Espinosa. One of Vanessa's diaries teases her fate, and that days later, after she wrote that, she was found dead. To me, this case is interesting because of what Anthony had just said. and that if LAPD didn't label this as a suicide and did a full-blown investigation, then maybe, possibly, they could find a sex trafficking ring, and they could stop this. But the LAPD doesn't believe that, so that will remain a mystery. Mrs. Garcia's death certificate claims that she has had a history of suicide attempts. In a way, it is still a 50-50 chance that she did do it, but who knows. As of right now, there's a GoFundMe for her, so I'll leave it in the description below. Rest in peace. Yosemite National Park is at third place for most missing people per year. In 2021, there have been at least 233 missing people, and the first place goes to Lake Mead National Recreation Area, with at least 563 within that same year. The more investigating you do in Yosemite, the stranger it is. There are tons of mysteries, legends, and creepy cryptid tales of Bigfoot and aliens, but the most realistic one is hundreds of missing children going missing. And you heard that right, I mean hundreds. A retired police officer named David Papulis, I think that's how you say his name, released a book called Missing 411 Western United States and Canada, Unexplained Disappearances of North America that have never been solved. And when he was writing that book, he had spent about 9,000 hours investigating missing people. They usually were adults and children around family members, but one thing that ticked him off during his investigation was huge missing disappearances of children going missing in Yosemite National Park. In a New York Times article, it says that not even national parks are sometimes accurate of people going missing. In this case, he saw cases of children never being seen again, or a lot of crazy stories to tell. Some of the patterns in investigation were children who were under 10 missing, no signs of struggle, trained tracking dogs couldn't find a scent, and if the dogs did find a scent, then it would be at the mountain, or it would lead up to the mountain. David said that some kids would go missing due to their curiosity and probably bad weather, but also why would they go up the mountain? And most of the time, weather wasn't a factor here. A weird detail of the missing children being found didn't add up, and they were found outside the search perimeter. In an interview, David Papulis said, "Sometimes these kids that I read about are found, like a 2 or 3 year old, are found 10 to 15 miles from the point they were last seen, or they're found 5,000 feet higher in elevation than where they disappeared. And as a parent, you'll know, my kid wasn't going to make that distance in this amount of time, or climb that elevation in this period of time, so it doesn't make sense." It didn't make sense to them, and they would often scratch their heads at it. Some of them would even be at the opposite side of a mountain. Some of the children who were found would often say that wild animals would care for them, such as friendly bears or big wolves. In my opinion, this could be the case, but for some people, they want to go more deeper. And this is where Bigfoot comes in. Now me personally, Bigfoot isn't my favorite cryptid, but let's see what some Bigfoot hunters has to say about this. They believe that younger children were cared for from Bigfoot, and oddly enough, the best data of missing people belong to Bigfoot hunters. And Bigfoot, as you might know, is a legendary ape-like creature said to lurk deep inside forests. So who really knows? Thankfully, some children have been returned, but other parents weren't so lucky, and my condolences go to them. Julie Williams was the type of person who loved sports and the outdoors, and 2 years before her eventful fate, she met Lowly, who also had the same interest. She then planned the trip as a celebration to the park due to her new job in Vermont. In May 1996, Julie Williams and Lowly Williams went to Shenandoah Park with their golden retriever and never came out alive, and their killer was never found. Julie and Lowly both pitched their tent outside of the horse trail, which was a bad idea because it was next to a stream, which muffled approaching footsteps, said investigators. On May 31st, her father, Thomas Williams, Julie's father, reported his daughter missing. Park rangers started a search and located Julie and Lowly's car just north of Skyline Lodge. They ended up finding their golden retriever in the forest. The next evening, on June 1st, 1996, rangers found the bodies of Julie and Lowly at their campsite on Bridle Trail, a part of the horse trail system that runs from Big Meadows to Skyland. Their campsite was next to a bar a quarter of a mile away from it, and that weekend was Memorial Day, packed with tourists and hikers, so a ton of people could have been suspects. It could have been easy for the suspect to kill and just leave, as for hikers at the time were regulated to be out of sight for some reason. When it comes to murder cases in Shenandoah National Park, this was the last reported case in solving. These cases are so complex due to lack of evidence. Shenandoah Skyline Drive is a popular place for a bike ride, and in July 1997, that's what Ivone Malbasha, a tourist from Canada, had come to do. As she pedaled the mountain roads, Malbasha was forced off the road and off her bike by a man driving a truck. He screamed sexual profanities at her as he stepped from his vehicle, enraged, and tried to force her inside. Malbasha was able to fight him off and took cover behind a tree as the man re-entered his truck and tried numerous times to run her over. He eventually gave up and sped away, and rangers apprehended him as he was attempting to leave the park. Later, when investigators searched his vehicle, they found hand and leg restraints hidden inside. Not much is known about the attacker, Daryl David Rice. At the time of Malbasha's attack, he was in his late 20s and living in Columbia. In Maryland, he pled guilty and did 135 months. Before that, people were starting to link him with the murder of Julian Lowley. He was asked why he liked hitting women, and he said that they are more vulnerable and more easier than men. He was later then asked about the two victims, and it was later found out that they were both lovers. He said they both deserved to die because of their sexual orientation. Rice was charged with 4 counts of capital murder, 2 of which alleged he selected his victims because of their sexual orientation. Because Rice was charged with a hate crime, invoked the federal sentencing enhancement. If convicted, Rice could receive the death penalty, but he was never sentenced. Though prosecutors spent years building the case against Rice, they lacked forensic evidence. Then in 2003, a hair found at the crime scene was tested. DNA results indicated that it did not match Rice or the victims. After that, the case fell apart. In 2004, the charges against Daryl David Rice were dismissed without prejudice, meaning he could still be charged at a later date. Because the murder of Julian Lowley is still an active investigation, the FBI will not discuss person of interest. No one has been convicted of the murders, and Rice was released from prison in 2011. The last reported sighting of Rice was in 2014 when police in Durango, Colorado began receiving calls from frightened residents saying they'd seen him in the area. Durango Police Chief Jim Spratlin said people were overreacting, adding, "All I know is he's not wanted and we ain't looking for him." As of today, there's no answer as to who did the murder. Today, they would have been in their mid to late 40s and would still be doing the things they loved. The shock of their murders is now just a shadow on an otherwise peaceful recreational paradise, but they will not be forgotten. May they rest in peace. As of now, nobody has figured out what had happened to these victims, even regarding how long ago they were, especially the Julian Lowley case. These cases may never be solved. And sure, only some cases will always be mysterious and never have an answer, and for some might have an answer in the future. Just know that whenever you are going hiking, be careful and go with people you know, and good luck.